Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host. We got a great guest for you tonight, Nugent Cantileno, and he was an intern and saw some amazing footage. We're going to be talking about that. And so recently, someone had told me to check him out on a UFO podcast, which I did, the UAP Files, I believe it is. And so I thought he'd make a great guest. And I did have a guest lined up, but the whole thing, it just worked out. So this is great. I'm glad to have Nugent on tonight. Just a couple of things. The reason this is pre-recorded, and for those of you who know how I do my shows, I am too darn lazy to edit. So I do, even my pre-recorded shows are just like they are live. I don't touch them. I just, do the show and that's it. So anyway, I will be traveling and I'll be flying up to when this is airing. I think I might make it so I can be in chat, but I'm not really sure or not. I'm going from South Carolina up to the Boston area, then Boston to Boston area, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Then I'm going to be heading to Shag Harbor and Nova Scotia. I'm going to be the MC up there for the conference. I'm pretty excited about that. Always love the people up there. It's a lot of fun. So if you happen to be going to the Shag Harbor, I always run into people that listen to the show. Please let me know while I'm there, and we'll hang out and have. It's going to be a great time. And then in a couple of weeks, out on the 17th through the 20th, I'm going to be out in Sedona for the Travis Walton Skyfire event, the 50th anniversary celebration. Basically, I guess you'd call it a celebration of when Travis Walton had his encounter, which was actually November 5th, 1975. A little bit early, so October 17th through the 20th, I'll be out there. So our blog this week is from Charles Lear, is a 1981 close encounter report from Australia. So check that out. As always, we're getting we backed up a little bit on our audio blogs, and so we are getting those out a couple of weeks to catch up on them. Charles does a great job on the audio blogs. And I do have one blog that I'm putting in through. Someone's going to be upset about it because I had to have AI read it. I thought it was a very good blog, but it was way back before Charles started doing the audio blogs. So I have that one coming up as well. So I think that's enough for housekeeping. I want to thank everyone that does support the show. I want to thank all the listeners. And I am ready to bring in our great guest. Nugent, welcome.
Hey, Martin, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. And you've quite a background. You're in the film industry, basically, right?
I am in the film industry, correct. So my current job is I am the co-director and you would be co-film commissioner, but co-director of our county's film office. So we do all the TV shows and movies that are, filming in the tri-state area. Mm-hmm. We have some really cool ones lined up. And then I've worked in visual effects for a time. I also worked in news. So I've done a lot in my 35 years.
That's right. And so you interned at Fox News, and where this whole thing happened and why you're here tonight. And
yes.
So can you just talk a little bit? We don't have to dive directly right into it, but
sure.
It was about Apollo 11. Is that what was the research was on, or how was
yes. So at that point, I was interning that particular summer in the Fox News documentary unit. So we were doing 2 documentaries that year. It was Apollo 11 and 9/11. And at the time, it was 2009. So there was an anniversary coming up, Apollo 11. And so again, it was 2009. So things were not digitized the way they are now, right? So we had these big beta tapes that would like put into there's giant VCR, and you'd crank a dial and you had to go to the footage, and it was a whole process. So you couldn't just hit a time code like you would now and just cut, go right to the clip you're looking for. So we were looking at basically the footage that we were looking at was from Apollo 11 up into the present, right? And it was kind of tracking NASA's history and where, how NASA grew and from Apollo 11 to the present day at the time. And so NASA was sending over all of their raw footage, their raw logs. So we were getting these big beta tapes from NASA, and it had all this raw footage in it. So we were looking at footage from Apollo 11, but then also looking at footage from, the current time. So with these beta tapes, you would get a written log, and it was like time coded. So you could kind of, whatever you were looking for, you could just crank the dial to that time code. But again, it was never exact, and that's very important for this to be never exact. And then you can kind of do what you had to do to cut it up, or ingest it, or whatever the term was. So
Can I just ask you how, because I remember there was a time where they actually spliced tape. Is that what they were doing at this time?
No. So what you would do, I don't remember the exact process, but I believe so. You would ingest it, they called it. So you would basically like find the time code in like with this like VCR thing, and then you would like send it off to a different department in Fox, and then they would upload it to the computer. So you weren't actually splicing it, but again, the term they used was ingest, and they had like an ingest department that would get the footage that you were looking at and feed it through into the system. And it was like this whole complicated process, if I remember, where you had to like wait an hour and then search the computer for it. It was like we've jumped in technology so far since then.
Oh yeah.
But so that's what we were doing. So in this particular day, it was coming towards the end of the documentary, or at least like the editing process. And I had to look for, I remember it was a clip of, on this log, this written log, this time code, it was like George Bush speaking. So the footage, usually the footage that they bunched on these tapes was from around the same time period. So it was George Bush talking, and I rewound too far because you can never get the time code just right. And at the time I had my own office, so it was just me, and I was doing the intern thing, like find this footage, ingest it, the whole bit. Rewound too far, and you hear, again, dead serious, may I drop dead right now if I'm lying, you hear the, like, I guess it was a female astronaut like speaking down to ground control, and she goes, can't come back into orbit because of the UFO. And I was like, oh my God. So I remember closing my door, and I rewound a little bit further, and the footage was it's like out of the window of the space shuttle, and you could see the Earth, and you see this gray little perfectly round disc or circular object just moving beeline across the surface of the Earth. And the female astronaut goes, speaking to ground control, tracking the UFO now. And you just see this thing just moving in a perfectly straight line, pretty fast, was not slow. It wasn't like a rock tumbling, beeline across the surface of the Earth. And then I ended up calling my supervisor, and I was like, Clay, you got to come look at this. Oh my God. And he, again, like I said in the past podcast, he was a big skeptic, and he was like, well, that could be anything. That could be, like they use the term UFO for anything they can't identify. But I'm a pretty intelligent person. I'm an educated person. This was not a rock. This was not space debris. It was perfectly round. It was a grayish circle disc. It was just round. It was perfectly round, and it was just moving beeline. And then years later, I was on YouTube, and I was just looking up different UFO things. So I've been a big believer in UFOs ever since I was a small child. And I came across a video that said leaked NASA footage, and it was the exact footage that I saw that day. And I have tried to find it since. YouTube is so inundated now with everything. It's so difficult to find. It's like finding a needle in a haystack at this point. But there were comments under that last podcast I did, but other people that had said that they had seen it too. So it's out there. So if anybody could find it, I would love to see it again. But I've tried.
Well, since I watched your podcast, and I looked as well, and then I thought, well, I'm going to toss it into Chat GPT and see what that says. And that didn't help. Usually it helps, in somehow, one way or another. But I I'm sure that it could be out there and it could have been deleted, somewhere
Yeah,
along the line, but you're
exactly.
right. There's I forget how many hundreds of hours per second are uploaded on YouTube. It's like an amazing
Oh yeah.
thing. So hard to find anything. Hmm.
It's not like the way it used to be. Like, now everyone and everything's on YouTube. So it's almost impossible to find, things from like 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Right, right. So, I mean, today, if this happened today,
Mm,
there were so many things that you could do to capture that, and
absolutely.
but back then there wasn't any type of screen capture you could do or any type of real capture you could do to get that. You didn't have in 2009. You could have maybe had something on your phone to video it. I don't know. I can't remember what we had back then.
Well, I didn't have, well, again, with Fox, like I said, like you couldn't ingest the whole video. You had to just ingest the part that you were looking for. So it wasn't even like I could have been like, ingest this entire video and then it's like on a computer someplace. But also too, like I was on my parents, I was 19. I was on my parents' phone plan and I didn't have an iPhone. I had some like
Flip phone.
shoddy, yeah, I had like some shoddy Verizon phone. I don't even know if it could even record video. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Because Verizon they didn't have iPhones at that point. They were still at AT&T and we were at Verizon. So yeah, I didn't have like now I could just whip out my iPhone and like record it, but I didn't
yeah.
have that option back then.
Right, right. And so it was met with skepticism,
Mhm.
as you said, and but you really had a feeling like you really really saw something amazing.
Absolutely.
Obviously, yeah.
There was no doubt in my mind that it wasn't like space debris or space junk. Like it was the way it was moving, the way it looked. It was definite.
Now I had a Dr. Gregory Rogers on this show, and he was basically the surgeon, the flight surgeon for the shuttle. And I'm
Mhm.
going to have him take a look at this when this is up.
Yes,
But
please do.
Yeah. But I can't really remember if he had conversations about UFOs, but there's been so many conversations. I sent you recently an old clip of this woman saying that they airbrushed
Yes.
out the UFO pictures at NASA.
Yes.
So there's been a lot of talk about that. Some of it conspiracy, maybe some of it not. You know,
Yeah.
um, and you obviously had a firsthand, situation. And can you imagine what else there would be? Because you just had that
Oh
one
yeah.
little clip, and it seems to reason there's probably a lot more.
Absolutely, and also too, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but that particular clip was not on the written logs. So whoever sent this tape out did not realize what was in this like this batch of footage,
Hmm.
because it was not listed in the written log at all, and that was really interesting.
It's kind of funny. We had NASA. I think it was like about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, where they said that they're going to appropriate a whole $100,000 into researching, UFOs. And I don't know whatever happened to that. I mean, that's like buying everyone at NASA lunch one
Right,
day. Um,
right,
but
right.
but anyway, it's the thing of it is the director of NASA, is he totally unaware that these images and footage exist to begin with? I mean, makes you wonder.
My personal belief is that I'm sure not everybody at NASA knows, but I'm sure a good amount of people know. And it's either something that's just not talked about, or it's one of those things where you're on like a need to know basis, and and you
Hmm.
only talk about like the clip you sent me where she said like, they were airbrushing things out, and that's I think more people than not probably know. That's what I think.
Hmm. Now, I had spoken to Alan Bean, who is the fourth person on the moon, and real nice guy. But I spoke to him on another podcast that I have for fine art and antiques and things like that. But that was my
Oh,
first
cool.
podcast. Anyway, um, after I started the UFO podcast in
Hmm.
2011. I reached out to him and said, "Hey, you were on my podcast about your art. Do you want to talk about the UFO that you saw in 1971 or two, whatever it was?" on the space lab. It's very well documented.
Mhm.
So no, thank you, all set.
Yeah,
So
I
there is
think
that stigma,
yes,
that-
absolutely. What I am, and I said this in the last podcast, like I said, I'm a huge believer, obviously. So is my cousin, and we would talk about this stuff all the time, growing up and whatnot. And I'm so happy to be living in a time where it's starting to become destigmatized, right? With
right.
everything going on with Congress, Representative Luna, who is really spearheading disclosure,
Hmm.
and I have a lot of hope that she's gonna really like blow the doors off this. Yeah, I mean, I make sure to watch all the congressional hearings, and bottom line is this, right? Whether people want to argue that it's our tech, that it's interdimensional, which is being thrown around a ton, extraterrestrial, something is there. Like that is
Yeah.
fact at this point. Like you can't really deny that, right? Something is
Mhm.
there. It's just a matter of who is piloting it, you know?
Right.
And that's how I feel.
It's kind of like, I feel like it's almost has to be reverse engineered in a way. All right, they're here. Now, how did they get here? That type of
Correct.
thing. Or who are they and
Absolutely.
how did they get here? But yeah, it's a big question. And, the topic goes around a lot, whether interdimensional or not. I have a guest coming up on Thursday that I know she's going to be talking a little bit of her thoughts, because I
Mhm.
know she is an amazing person, and I think she has multiple degrees, but a PhD at Harvard and all that. But her thoughts are that she really thinks they're extraterrestrial, and she
She does.
thinks that these are advanced, and to the point where they have figured out the vast distances in a different type of way. And I think that will happen. I think that
Yes.
if we were a million or even a billion years more advanced, we're going to know so much more. Um,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's just these things in physics that we can't figure out right now. That's all. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I have no idea. I never want to say I know what they are. But I wonder, what they are and what they want and what they're doing.
I'm gonna ask you a question now. This is my
Yeah,
journalism side coming out. What do you believe that they are? From everybody you've spoken to, your own
yeah.
research.
I would rather say that I know maybe even less than when I started, because I don't, I mean, I think there's possibilities, and there are certain instances where I think that, boy, interdimensional might work in that situation,
Hmm.
because of something blinking out and blinking back in, and
Yes.
the different things like that. But my best guess is that it's a combination, and that we have very little knowledge of what's really going on around us all the
Hmm.
time. I mean, with our all our senses and our spectrum of vision and all that, there's probably all kinds of things going on that we
Absolutely.
just don't know.
And there's a whole spectrum of color that scientists say that we can't even see. Our eyes
Right.
can't perceive, you
Yes.
know?
Yep. Yep.
And
There's Yeah. So no, it's a real mystery. And something like what happens to you that happened to you, that just
Mhm.
opens the door for you to be more curious. And I think
Absolutely.
that's what it did for me when I had my sighting. But I listened to your podcast, like I said. You also had. Are you near where those drones were happening
Yeah.
in
So
that general area?
so I am in Long Island, New York. And so
Hmm.
Jersey could be anywhere depending on time of day, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. So I'm not that far, but we started seeing them here. So I was driving through Jersey with someone and we saw them. And then eventually within like a week or two, people started seeing them on Long Island. So I absolutely saw them. One was like a red dot that I had seen in the sky. It was obviously it wasn't a plane. It was just this red dot flying. Trying to think another one that I think the ones that I had seen in Jersey, it was like a green color. And they were big. Like the one in Jersey was big. It wasn't like a small, like little like model airplane or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it was decent
Hmm.
size. Um, so yeah, like they were all around. There was actually a few nights where my sister and I started driving around to see if we could see them down by the beach. And you could. It was like, oh, and then another one that I saw was when I was driving through Jersey. The first time, it was like a ball of light, like up on like to my right. It was on like the side of the highway. And yeah, so they were around. What they were, I couldn't tell you. And there's obviously, there's been so many theories around. I think what President Trump said that they know what they are, but they couldn't say. I think someone else said it was China. But yeah, they were there. I saw them. They were real, and we had them here on Long Island.
It's still, I think it's still a mystery. I still don't think we have the total answers to as far as I know, and then the FAA, according to the administration, the FAA said that they knew they were testing, but previously they said we are unaware of any testing or something.
Right.
So they did a back and forth on that one. So I don't even know.
I agree. And like, why would the FAA lie the first time? You know what I mean? Like, they would just say, oh, we're testing X, Y, and we're testing drones, right? Like, people know what drones are. So why would you lie about it? And then there's all those new drones now, sightings, and I think it's like Europe, right? It's been going on.
Yeah. Well, they've had at that same time that there were, but people are saying that it's ongoing. It's not, it's still ongoing, just not as much as it was. But, it was everywhere. It was in Germany. It was in Australia. It was all over the place. So yeah, that was bizarre. And it happened the year before around the same time. And I believe the year ahead of that around the same time of year as well. So I really don't understand what that's about, but yeah, it's crazy.
I remember too, there's another one where I was driving on the highway. It was always like when you were on the highway, it was always like near like highways near water. And I also live, I don't live too far from the beach. So there was another night where it looked like this one was big. It was like 4 points. It was, and that obviously, yes, it could obviously be a drone because drones do have 4 points, but there was another, like, it was white lights and there were 4 points flying on the side near the highway. High, but I mean, you could obviously see it.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get back to your footage.
Sure.
Now, what happened? So this happened to you. You talked to your boss. He was a skeptic, said, it's probably debris or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Did you talk to other people there too?
I'm trying to remember if I spoke to our others. Well, yes. So I might have told our other supervisor, but years later, when I was not an intern and I was hired, I was on a popular show. I don't want to say the show's name, but I was on a popular show. Now it's a popular show. Back then it was just starting. This was in 2015, 2016, and I happened to tell my new supervisor on this show. I was like, oh my God, do you want to hear what happened to you when I was an intern and what I saw? And her and the other guy, they laughed. They totally laughed it off. I totally remember sitting at my desk and they would give us TVs and you were supposed to watch the channel or at least have the channel on when you were working. And so it had to be like 2015, 2016. So there was a UFO story that one of the shows was doing, and I remember I could hear them like laugh. When you used to feel someone like looking at you, I could like hear them laughing and like looking. And I looked back and like they were looking at me. And I was like, okay, I feel like I'm in like high school right now. But what's so funny is that particular show has covered a lot, all the UFO stuff going on. So I was just like, there's a part of me that has always wanted to reach out and be like, see, I told you so.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So they kind of changed the tune a little, and a lot of it, like you mentioned earlier, with the, the hearings, I've been to 2 out of 3 of those hearings, but because of that, more people are accepting it and looking into it. Those type of things help. I don't know how much it's going to move the needle, but it seems like it at least it's opening up, more minds to it. And,
right. And I think personally, when you see people who have credentials and they have a really strong resume, so to speak, behind them, it makes the naysayers listen, right? Because it's not like Joe Schmo from Middle America being like, I was abducted last night. You know what I mean? It's people who have, again, I don't, like I said, like a really strong resume, a strong history behind them, in a position of power. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that somebody in a position of power is telling the truth, but Joe Schmo isn't. You know what I mean? But because of the optics of it, people listen.
Yes. Yep. That's right. So just running this thing across the line down here. So just our upcoming guests. This coming up this Thursday is Jensine Anderson. I just mentioned her a minute ago, talking about basically how we would react if we were, introduced to an extraterrestrial civilization. I particularly think that we're probably going to be warring, as that's what we always seem to do. Shoot them down type of thing, type of situation. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, a week from tonight, David Marler comes up. Now, last time I had David Marler on, I messed up, and everyone was showing up for David Marler. He's a great researcher, and I messed up on the date and wondered where he was. And he said, I told you I'm at a conference. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, you probably feel a little more comfortable these days talking to someone about, what you saw than you would have, even back a few years ago, really.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because now, people don't look at you like you have two heads or you're making it up or, X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z. And, you know, I just people in just like my everyday life, whenever like the hearings are going on, I try and say like, oh, you should watch this. This is going on today. This is not, this isn't a joke. This is being taken seriously, And I got
Right.
to say, the
Yeah.
majority of the people in my life are or have become believers in this stuff for the most part, if they weren't
Mhm.
prior.
I see. Now, you're on Long Island, and have you ever heard of the
Mhm.
Tedesco brothers?
I believe I have.
Yeah, that's someone you
Refresh my
may want to
memory.
connect with. They actually are. There's a park. It's called something Moses Park. I can't think of the. Are you familiar with
Robert
that?
Moses.
Yeah, that's it. Robert
Mhm.
Moses Park. They go there all the time, and they have amazing equipment in this RV. I went down and visited and hung out with them for a night, trying to see what they see, because
Oh, I would
oftentimes they
love
will
to.
capture. Yeah, I can make the connection for you.
Please
Um,
do. Please do.
yeah, but they're there. They are so dedicated. They're there all
Are
the
they?
time, all the time. They're there every weekend, and they say all till all hours in the morning. And it happened to be that one night that they left early was the night but I was ready to go, because it's kind of like fishing. You sit there and wait and wait
Yep.
and wait. Something happens or it doesn't happen, but you should see the equipment that they have.
I would love
And
to.
the night after I left, they had seen sightings.
Did
And
they?
then there's a great guy, Dr. Keith Taylor, who was there with them, and he thinks that he had some reactions from some orbs. He was all
Really?
excited. He contacted me and said this just amazing. It felt like they was under intelligent control, and they
That's
got it all on radar. They got it on film, and you would think that you would hear more about it when there's so much equipment. But at the last hearing, for instance,
Mhm.
there was Wiggins, Chief Wiggins, who is an active member.
Mhm.
They had this video they showed. I'm sure you saw it. It looks like a
I
tic
did.
tac. And
Yep.
then they had that in radar. They had multiple witnesses, and AARO never even looked into it, which is quite amazing.
Arrow to me is the new Project Blue Book.
Yeah, basically, a lot
Honestly,
of people say that. Yeah.
that's exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah. Window dressing and,
Yep.
trying to keep some people a little bit quiet, like they're, I think so. I had the former acting director, Tim Phillips, on.
Mhm.
Great guy, very interesting. But I just feel as though that there's no the transparency there isn't really true.
Oh
Partially,
yeah.
but not all the way through.
I think Arrow had ulterior motives. That's what I
Yeah,
think. So
yeah,
whenever I see that pop, I'm like, okay. And I think it was Representative Luna who called. I can't think of his name. The
yeah. Kirkpatrick, I heard it.
yes,
She
she like
called him a
called him
liar.
out like right there. She was just like,
Yeah,
he's like a documented liar. So
yeah. That was kind of surprising. But in this climate, it's not all that surprising. But anyway, I was one of the things that impressed me the most. I was there with the first one with David Grush, and the second one with Lou Elizondo. These are and other people, of course. David Fravor was at the first one. Ryan Graves, who's been on the show, he was there. Um, but it felt really historic, and for you to sit there in the audience and watch these people that fight about everything,
Mhm.
the political battles constantly, and they're all getting along, and they're all asking great questions. I thought that was such a great thing to see.
Absolutely, and I think I'm so I gotta be honest with you. Like, I'm so jealous you got to be there because I mean, like you said, it's historic, and I wish more people understood the weight and the gravity, no pun intended, of these congressional hearings. I mean, this is history. Like this, and like you said, like both sides are getting along. I think it was Ronald Reagan who, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I have the wrong president, but I think it was Ronald Reagan that, and I'm paraphrasing, that there was like the famous quote where it was like, if we were to be faced with like an extraterrestrial threat, that
Yeah,
we would come together as a world.
yeah, that's basically Reagan, and
Yeah,
yeah, that was Reagan. But I mean, that's basically what he said. Exactly what
yeah,
you know. I don't even know if that was paraphrasing. I think it's pretty much what he said. But and it is something that I think of quite often in a way. It would be really
absolutely.
nice to get some unity, and too bad it would
Yeah,
have to take something like that. But I mean, it
I
would,
know.
and not just a threat. I mean, just if we understood that we were not alone. I think
Right.
maybe we'd possibly come together more than we have been.
And I know there's like a whole big debate about, eh, putting all like disbelief aside, right? From somebody who is a skeptic. Like, you know, let's just say, again, anyone who watching is a skeptic, let's put all your disbelief aside for a second. Say this is all legit, all real, everything, right? I
Hmm.
know that there's been talk that it's like religious reasons why like parts of the government doesn't want it out and they don't want it out. But, you know, if you believe in God, you believe in a higher power, whatever that higher power is, who said that that higher power couldn't create life elsewhere in the universe?
Hmm.
Why do we have to be the be all end all, right?
Yeah.
Who said, if you believe that an omnipresent present being created the entire universe, why
Yeah.
couldn't he or she or it have created life elsewhere? Even if
Yeah.
that is interdimensional, even if it's not from a different planet, you know?
Yeah. No, no. I mean, it's the odds are that we're alone is very, very low.
Very
I think
slim.
about any scientist may, think along those lines that there's very few that think that we're alone. I think,
I
you
agree.
know,
I agree.
what's
It's
always curious to me
possible.
is what started the first spark of life. That's like,
Me too.
and maybe someday they'll be able to duplicate that. They have been trying to, which I think is fascinating.
Mhm. I
But,
know. Well,
but yeah,
there was a whole thing with the Webb telescope that they were hoping to see the Big Bang, and they realized that the universe is way older than they thought.
yep, that's right. Yeah, that's going to teach us a lot. And you think of just, it's so funny. We're on this little outer arm of Orion, and we can just see, so much, but
Hmm.
still we can see such a vast universe from
Yep.
what we can see is it's just crazy. And, I mean, how would it be the end of anyway? I mean, how
Right.
would there be the end and the beginning? It's just so hard to fathom all that stuff. But
Right.
yeah.
I everything about the Webb telescope. I'm so fascinated by. I keep up with it. I check up every day, every couple days to see what's going on, and I just think it's such. It's just again, it's another thing. I don't think people realize the gravity of it. It's
Hmm.
so it's groundbreaking. It really is.
Right. I got to see that when it was being built. I
You did?
stopped. It was really cool. This big, huge containment room. I have pictures of it. And there were these people in these white, hazmat type suits. Everything's dust
Hmm.
free. And they
Yeah.
were, just the fact that those mirrors came out and worked exactly the way they were supposed to. And it's like a million miles away. I mean, it could have just been like trash if that didn't.
Hmm.
I mean, they were all just crossing their fingers when everything, when they first got the image back. It was like,
Yeah.
phew. I mean, there's so much invested and time invested. But anyway, so I think it's been really interesting to talk to you. It's been great.
Yes.
I mean, I just one last thing here. I was thinking about, so you're
Yeah.
19 years old, you're an intern.
Hmm.
When you came home that night, did you talk to your parents about this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember telling my father and mother, and they were just kind of like, "Oh, that's nice." Like I didn't really. My mother, however, has become a huge believer in this stuff because she's like watching Skinwalker Ranch. She started watching. I got her into. I always forget the name. Lou Elizondo's on History Channel. His show on
Oh,
History
yes.
Channel.
Yeah.
I
I
can't
can't.
think of the name.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I told you it's in yellow.
Unidentified or
I
no,
can't.
no.
It's like I'm blanking, but
Yeah.
my buddy worked on it.
Oh, is that
He was
right? Yeah.
he was a sound guy. You see him in the background. Um, and yeah, and then of course my cousin, who I had mentioned in the previous podcast, that he was invited to the first Soul conference, and he was told some like mind blowing things. And I say like that's his story to tell, and I don't want to like put his name out there without him saying it himself. But if you want to speak to him, I would be happy to get you guys in touch. And the stuff he was told, he thinks my story is so cool. He's like, "Oh my god, like you most likely saw an actual UFO," and I'm like, "Yeah, but like what you were told was like wild."
So
So
we actually, well, first of all, it was called Unidentified Inside
unidentified. Yes,
America's
that's what it was.
UFO
That's what
Investigation.
it was.
Yeah.
Unidentified.
Yep. But
Yeah.
so he had a basically off mic conversation.
Yes, he had with a handful of people. And one was again, when we stopped, just like last time, when we stopped recording, I'll be happy to tell you what was said. But one who was very, very prominent, a very, very prominent name, had an off mic conversation, and someone from an organization he spoke to. And the stuff that he was told was like, I was like, do you understand what you like? The implications of what you were told was wild, in my
Yeah.
opinion. In my
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, I've talked to Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo and different people over the years, and basically I've come right out and said, do you know things that you can't say that you think would change the mind of everyone? And they both basically say, well, I don't remember if I asked Chris Mellon that exact. It was a long time ago, but Lou definitely says, oh yes, and a lot of people they don't like to hear that. They would rather
Mm-hmm.
not. They say just say it. Like of course,
Right.
if someone's going to like get in big trouble, they
Right.
don't, like of course he would if he said something that was classified or whatever.
Exactly.
Then
Exactly.
he'd have a problem. But that must be if you actually have information that is real, but you can't talk about it. That must be really tough.
Right.
Must be hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's something. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when my cousin went. He was actually invited back to the one in Italy that's going on, but I don't know if he's going to
Oh
go
yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found what he was told to be like, wow. Which I'll tell you when we stop recording.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's been really great. I really appreciate it. Thank
It's
you
been
for your
such a
time.
pleasure. Thank you so much
Yeah.
it's been an honor. You've
Yeah.
done like so many cool things. You've interviewed so many amazing people. So thank you for including me in the conversation. I appreciate it.
You bet. All right. Thanks again. All right. Take care.
Of course.
All right, everyone. So we'll be back coming up this Thursday with Jensine Anderson. Next week, we have Dave Marler on Tuesday. And then we have Joshua Bertrand on Thursday. And I will be traveling this week. Hopefully, I'll be in chat while this is airing. And thanks so much, everyone. And remember to keep your eyes to the sky.